Hey everybody, it's me checking in. Gonna do a shop video today. This is about as clean as my shop's been, so I figured it'd be a good day to kind of give you guys a tour of everything we do here at the factory. So we'll kind of start off. The way it's set up is kind of a linear business model where we start from cutting the trees down to milling and then all the way through production to finish. So I might as well just do the video the same kind of way and show you how the process starts out. So I guess with the first part of the video, we'll just take a look at the sawmill, which I have out here. The logs that we use are all salvage, so they come from landowners, local landowners. Some of them I cut, some of them the local tree services cut, and I get it from them. The only problem with salvage logs is obviously you're gonna have to be dealing with nails and bullets and fences and all kinds of other hardware that comes in it. So I'll go ahead and take you over to the mill and give you a look at that. So this mill is a LT70 Super wide. It's got the wider head. It has a throat that'll kind of allow me to go up to 36 inches. It's kind of tough when you actually get to the full ability of the mill. Those of you that have been here since the beginning know that I started off on the blue easy boardwalk mill. I didn't buy that with the intent of running a business, so when things got too demanding of the blue mill, I ended up getting this, and by then I knew exactly what I needed for getting done what we need to get done. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a backup on the mill. We got a bunch of drop cuts from the recent work we've been doing. We've been doing a lot of milling for the shop. So one thing about this mill is it's actually geared for production, but we do all furniture, so we don't run it very much. I think I've had this thing for about 6 years, and it's got 650 hours total on it. So that's, a little over 100 hours a year. These things are really meant to be run 8 hours a day, every day. But we use it almost strictly for, like I say, for furniture. So half of it's probably furniture and half of it's doing personal stuff for the shop. So when I bought this mill, I needed the hydraulics. So this one, it all runs in the back here off of a control panel. It's all automated. I can set my depth and different board settings. It is a pretty steep learning curve to run this mill. Having come from the boardwalk, I almost recommend anybody that's thinking about something like this to start off on a smaller mill and then move up to this, because the curve on this thing is pretty steep and it's a lot of power, and when things go wrong, it can really tear stuff up, and it's expensive. So if you learn on a smaller mill, you can kind of make your mistakes there, and then you know what to look out for when you get into a bigger mill. But this is kind of what the interface looks like. I don't know if it's going to come across on the video, but all the settings are there for getting you what you need. So after the mill, we come over here to the next piece of equipment, which is an IDRY vacuum kiln that comes out of Vermont. I had to go and pick this up myself, and from where I'm at, it's a really long ways. So we started off obviously with the solar kiln, but once things started getting busy, the solar kiln wasn't able to keep up with production, so we started falling behind. This thing runs off a 220 power. It is pretty expensive to run it, so we only run it when we have to. It actually pulls a vacuum on the wood down to 8 bars. The ambient pressure is about 26 around here, depending on what weather's coming and going. Everything on the inside is stainless steel to prevent rust, because it pulls on an insane amount of moisture out of the wood. It gets to 160 degrees, and you can kind of cycle what kind of power settings you want to do, if you want to do a really aggressive dry or a slow dry. So we kind of run the slow dry, because the aggressive dry tends to cup and twist the wood pretty bad. So we have it insulated right now and built in this special enclosure so we can run it in 4 seasons. A lot of guys, they'll put this thing inside their shop and use the ambient heat for their shop, but floor space here is at a premium, so we built it its own little container. This thing will bring wood to 6% in 2 to 3 weeks at 2 inches thick. So if you know anything about wood drying, 2 inches thick usually takes about 2 years to dry, air dry to 6%. So coming back into the shop, once it comes off the kiln, we bring it to this machine. This is a custom made slab surfacer. So you can buy some of these off the internet or wherever your local manufacturing place is. I know Woodmizer makes one. There's one that comes out of Australia, a slab wizard or something like that. The ones that you can buy that are pre-manufactured are kind of slow and they don't have a lot of power. So this one I decided to build on my own. It gives me a bigger bed, a longer bed, and more power, and it does stuff way faster. So this one right here is based off of a 5-horse 3-phase motor, and then I bought a special fly cutter from a place in Australia. It's like a 7-inch, it's in metric units, but it's about 7 inches wide, and it's got 5 different cutter heads on it. And then I modified the cutter head on that to some horizontal cutters to give us a better finish. So the original cutter head kind of did a lot of tear out, and by adding the other cutters, it gives us a nicer cut. So I'll show you kind of what that looks like. So this is that cutter head that I was talking about now. These are the ones that it comes with, and then these are the ones that we added extra. I actually changed the size of these cutter heads also so that they're bigger and they last longer. This thing, for whatever reason, this thing gets dull pretty fast. I guess because you're not using a bunch of cutter heads compared to like a planer. It does dull probably, every couple of days. If we're running it really hard, I got to sharpen it. So with those bigger cutter heads, it lasts a little bit longer. And then after this piece of equipment, we bring it over here, and we're in the middle of a job right now. So we bring it over to a planer, and we run it through this. So the slab surfacer gives us one side that's flat, and then we bring it into the planer to thickness it. So you can see that there's this job that's leaning up against it is a bunch of stairs for the shop. They're all hardwood Siberian elm. They've been surfaced, and they're just waiting for us to run through the planer. So this planer I've modified also. I put a helical head in it. So this is it's from Bird, I think. It's pretty expensive cutter head, but it's way more efficient, gives a nicer cut, lasts longer on the sharpen, and it's significantly quieter. The downside is it technically should need a couple more horsepower, so sometimes it'll bog up. It would be nice on a 24 to be running a 24-inch planer. It would be nice to be running a 7 horsepower motor, which some of these Grizzlies come with. This one, it came with a 5 horsepower. This is single phase. We've got a really crappy dust hood on it, but that's because the one it comes with is even crappier. It kind of shoots the dust out right here. So when you're lifting material up, you're always hitting that one. This one, now it shoots it to the side. So after the planer, we go, depending on what we're doing, if it's a finished job, we'll run it into this machine to give us a sanding, or to sand it. So this is a 37-inch wide belt sander. It's a really older model. This came from a guy that had a cabinet shop and was building doors. We use it quite a bit, but it doesn't do the greatest job on a finish sand. So we'll do our initial sanding like a 36 or 100 grit, and then bring it over to the orbitals. So what we're seeing come out of this one is a lot of chevroning. and banding in the wood grain. So sometimes if you go into a finer grit, it actually takes you more work to get the defects out of the wood that the sander puts in it, but it does save us a whole bunch of time. This is also 3-phase. I think it's got a 20 horse motor in it. The amount of time it saves us, it's worth having. I would have liked to had I think it's called a double drum or a triple drum, but we're not on hard lined 3-phase, so I'm running a digital phase converter, and we only have so much power. So even with the phase converter, I'm only able to pull 20 amps or 200 amps. So you're making a third leg out of two legs, so you're actually drawing down your amp capacity. You need more amps to be able to run more legs, and we're limited by 200 amps, which for what we do, it's fine. It just means we got to run smaller machines. Otherwise, it would have been extremely expensive to run 3-phase from a power pole to where I'm at. With all these machines, though, we're running off of a Grizzly dust collector. This is a 10 horse 3-phase also. Pretty good dust collector. None of it's hard lined in. Eventually, the plan is to hard line this in and move it so it's not in the way of our production area. But we just changed the hoses. They're all flexible hoses, so we just changed the hoses to whatever equipment we're using. So outside of our normal production, moving over here, once we get to this stage, this is how we're doing our tables, bars, countertops, desks, whatever else, big surface, flat material. That's where we just move on to the hand tools. Primarily, we use, a Festool. Even though it's really expensive, it is extremely good equipment. So we'll do all of our hand work here, but we also do additional work depending on what orders we need this to get finished. This is a Woodmizer MP360 Moulder. It's a 4-sided Moulder, and it allows us to do things like tongue and groove, crown molding, trim, S4S, smooth 4-side, dimensional wood. We don't really get into production because it's not really set up to be running high numbers. Things like, just regular boards, 2x4s, 2x6s. We can do it, but it's not something that's really set up to have done. So this Moulder it's okay for what it does, but it's definitely got some flaws. So the reason I got it is because it's right at the top of what I can run. If I wanted it to run a bigger Moulder, we would run into power problems again. So the biggest problem with this Moulder is it doesn't have a chain drive on the bed. I don't know if that's what it's called, but whenever you run pitch saturated wood, which we do a lot of, like pines, you'll get pitch deposits on the bed, and then it won't feed through, so you'll end up having to really muscle it through. Whereas if you have a chain drive on the bottom, that's not a concern. So it also isn't very fast. So those bigger Moulders are faster. They got better feed mechanisms, and they just all around do a better job. So for what it is, it works. If you're planning on doing production, I definitely wouldn't recommend getting one of these. I'd recommend getting a bigger one. Then we got other tools, just basic shop tools, a table saw, a shaper, and then a 10 horse 3-phase air compressor, a bandsaw, drill press. We don't really use those too terribly often. Usually it's if it's something to do with the cut that we got to be making that we can't get with hand tools. Joiner. I bought all this stuff used, so it saved money on buying used. If you buy it new, you know right away it's extremely expensive to buy these kind of tools new. And then I can show you, I guess, what we're currently working on. For shop work, we haven't got it insulated yet, so things like this wall in the back, we haven't put any siding on it. We're waiting to get some more windows put in so we can bring in spray foam and have it spray foamed. So a lot of this stuff is temporary. This is all these treads that I'm talking about. These actually go over here. We have temporary treads put down so we can go up and down. These were made out of junk wood, but it works pretty good. We'll come up here, take a look. This is what we're working right now. We're putting in some stringers to get up here to the loft. We need to get these treads done and on these stringers to do the math to get up to the loft. So it still has a few more days worth of work put into it. So you can kind of see how things are laid out. We have it figured out pretty good right now as far as where stuff should be to go from one machine to the next, and then have enough floor space to work on jobs. So it's doing pretty well. We're going to put an overhead crane in to get heavy stuff on the CNC yet, so that's not quite where it needs to be. But up here, this is just where we keep our inventory. So we got a bunch of hardwoods and softwoods and stuff that's already been CNC'd and ready for customers to, it's ready for customers and to purchase and do whatever they want to do or whatever we need to do. So other than that, looking up into the shop, here's the loft, and then you can see all the timber work that's gone into it. That's why it's not done. It takes an enormous amount of time and effort to timber frame. So everything in this shop has been cut by hand, transported here, milled, and then all the joinery that goes with that. It's a lot of labor, but it's an extremely strong building. It's overbuilt actually to handle 70 pounds of snow, but because it has a metal roof on it, the snow never stays on it, so it just falls off. But it's all right. That's the look that I wanted when we went to go build this shop. So it's pretty cool. It's a vaulted, it'll stay a vaulted ceiling. We still have to put, like I say, put the insulation up in there and then deck it out, and we'll put some fire suppression and then our lighting and whatever else we want to put in there. So all these windows that are in the shop, you can't really see too terribly well. They're all custom made. We made all the frames from cedar that came out of Nebraska. It's all aromatic cedar. It's actually juniper, but it's got good rot resistance. So we're still working on those up here. You know, that mess of plastic, that's the batch of windows we still got to get put in, and then we'll be able to start doing our insulation, and then our finish work after that with siding or wall siding and trim and whatever, make it pretty. So other than that, that's kind of the wrap on this video. If you want to help out, you just do the usual stuff: like, subscribe, leave a comment. Obviously would have liked to have shown more of how this thing was built, but it's just been crazy busy. So I'll see you on the next video.